That Israel would like to stay here after it has a ceasefire, well, to be seen later. But strategically, the fact that northern Gaza, basically northern Gaza, Deir al-Bala, pretty much, and then the second largest destruction in Khan Yunis. So these are the collectorates, or sorry, the governorates within Gaza. So now, what is Israel gaining out of this? I think what Israel gains out of this is actually three corridors, if it wants, through Gaza. The one in the middle and the Nethin corridor, and that's basically what they're in for. I do not think Israelis would settle back into Gaza immediately. So aim of Israel has been achieved. That essentially, in front of the Western press, the four things that are coming up. Number one, they believe Iran lost face. They believe Russia lost face. So let's just stop on in the case of Syria. I think in both these cases, there were premeditated talks between the Iranians, the Turks, the US people, the USA, and the Russia, off and behind the curtains, and strictly behind the curtains, where all these agreements were reached. So Iran is now taking steps, and we also have to understand that while it stays under under Khatami, its theological existence is still there. It is moving into the 21st century with this new government, and so we know we should realize that Iran has its own struggles, not just vis-a-vis what it projects to the world, but so coming back to Syria, I think if you ask me properly, I think Israel does not know what happened or what is going to happen post present Syria, right?
Watch Federal Post. Bold and independent.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Hasan Zafar with Talking Politics. We have Mr. Amer Durrani Sahab with us. Amer Sahab has worked with the World Bank and he is a political economist. Thank you very much for joining, sir.
Thank you very much, Hasan. Pleasure to be here.
The current situation in Middle East, Israel, where have they arrived after over a year of war in Gaza? And how has the Syrian situation, the developments that have taken place in Syria the previous 2 weeks, how have those developments contributed to the ongoing war in Gaza?
Awesome, thank you very much. That's in fact 3 or 4 loaded questions in one question. So I'll try and unbundle them. And if I forget one part of the question, I really would
I'll
appreciate if you
prompt
can
you,
find
of
me.
course, yes.
Please prompt me. Yeah, so I mean, let's start with what is Israel gaining here. So I mean, the bottom line here is that we already know that since the Hamas-Fatah breakup, I mean, and the fact that Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza, and we were kind of hoping that there would be a joint PA government there. But eventually, Fatah lost to popular vote. I mean, and basically Hamas got the popular vote in Gaza. So if you look back, forget Gaza for 1 second, go back to West Bank. Does the Fatah government control the West Bank? So technically, less than 18% of West Bank's area is controlled after all this. As we spoke, let's say, imagine a date of, for example, October 7th or 6th of last year, right, when this whole debacle and war started. So given that, so it's that they control only 18%, they have a joint control over maybe 16, so 60% of West Bank outright controlled by Israel.
Yes.
Now, with Israel's unilateral withdrawal, I think this was a pretty much the only coastline available to, let's say, Palestinians, I'll call them, right? And we know that the Palestinian state, as defined, is a collection of both the West Bank and the Gaza. So basically, what they've done in the last 1 year now is literally, number one, come back to Gaza with a bang and pardon the taunt, but actually in doing so have obliterated Palestinians from that place. So this is to me really, if there was ever a mass killing of people or genocide, which is planned for political, for religious, for ethnic religious, you label it whichever way. This is definitely a genocide. It's a cleansing of the area. That Israel would like to stay here after it has a ceasefire, well, to be seen later. But strategically, the fact that northern Gaza, basically northern Gaza, Deir Bala, pretty much, and then the second largest destruction in Khan Yunis. So these are the collectorates, or sorry, the governorates within Gaza. So now, what is Israel gaining out of this? I think what Israel gains out of this is actually three corridors, if it wants, through Gaza. The one in the middle and the Nathan corridor, and that's basically what they're in for. I do not think Israelis would settle back into Gaza immediately. So aim of Israel has been achieved. But I think the amazing thing in this, what they've done is like they having left Gaza unilaterally, they have now come back, and as I would again reiterate that, they've just gotten rid of the opposition, essentially routing out the Palestinians.
Have they completely got rid of Hamas? Have they arrived at a point where they can call it victory?
I think the fact that they have about 100 odd people that are still hidden somewhere by Hamas, and the fact that really, even if you look at today's incidences, I mean, their attack on the Houthis, you will realize that the Israel is kind of taking a last breath and sort of relaxing in trying to say that to its people who are now pretty war weary that it has achieved its objectives in Gaza. That's number one.
Hmm.
Has Hamas totally passed? I mean, has it gone? I think Hamas has lost favor. Or no, let me repeat that. It's not lost favor, but let's put it this way. The ability of its supporters to support Hamas is gone, pretty
And
weak.
because of Syria.
And
So let me prompt Syria into this discussion, as I put in my opening question. The Syria,
yeah,
Bashar al-Assad's fall has cut off the supply to Hamas, and Iran's ability to help Hamas. How far has that
I
entered?
I think that, this is like, in my mind, I think, yes, that is one possible supposition, and it is one possible theory that was espoused the very day. But so the answer to your question is maybe, right? But let me tell you why I say maybe and not definitely so. I think that the losing of support there is because Iran has lost face. This is why I said that Hamas is now Iran's lost face in a way that essentially, in front of the Western press, the three, four things that are coming up. Number one, they believe Iran lost face, they believe Russia lost face. So let's just stop in the case of Syria. I think in both these cases, there were premeditated talks between the Iranians, the Turks, the US people, the USA, and the Russians, off and behind the curtains and strictly behind the curtains, where all these agreements were reached. Because strategically, the fact that Iran did not fire back, you see, there was a very strategic attack back by Israel, and it's like in the case of Iran and Israel, it was more like a table tennis match rather than a squash or a
Exactly.
tennis match.
Hmm.
So Iran is now taking steps, and we also have to understand that while it stays under Khatami, its theological existence is still there. It is moving into the 21st century with this new government, and so we know we should realize that Iran has its own struggles, not just vis-a-vis what it projects to the world, but so coming back to Syria. I think if you ask me properly, I think Israel does not know what happened or what is going to happen post present Syria, right? So post HTS, and I'll tell you how one knows that. The very day that HTS is able to come to Damascus, Israel has already started bombing the hell out of they approached on Golan. They took parts of Golan Heights. They now sit on the strategic heights of parts of the Golan, where once the second most powerful Islamic army, Syria, not recently, but historically, actually sat. So I think that Syria to me is primarily a victory of Turkey. And I'll stop there.
The victory of Turkey, because a large part of northwestern Syria is now occupied by, I'm not saying controlled by, but occupied by Turkish forces.
Well,
And
it's the Kurdish
uh,
part.
a considerable part of Syria is controlled by Turkey, and some part of along the Golan Heights is controlled by Israel. And in the northeast of Syria are the Kurdish and American forces controlling the area where the oil sites are. And in the middle, somewhere around Damascus, uh, there are some independent groups. So there are 5, 6 groups operating and occupying different parts of Syria at the moment. So number of players there. What has been quite intriguing for me is that Iran, Russia, they have, of course, they have been adversely affected by the fall of Assad regime. Who is the real beneficiary of this? Is Israel the real beneficiary, or the Saudis are the beneficiary of this because they did not like Assad? And the Turkish forces are in now. Turkish and Saudis, I don't know the common grounds where they can agree with each other or where they can come together. But what is actually happening there?
So I think predicting all this right now, to be very honest, the world's best commentators today, even you hear about from them, you read them every day since this has happened. Almost everyone is puzzled. But to answer your question, one thing everyone is for sure that this is the revival of the Ottoman, the century of the revival of the Turks, right? I mean, to
Okay.
the extent that
Yes.
symbolism has come back. So after the 100-year treaty is over, has been over now, the Turks now have really taken a larger breath, and they would not have done so with such, I should say, assurance had it not been Erdogan at the helm. So overall, it's Erdogan and the slightly rightist Islamic bent parties and the rural parties of Turkey, not the old urbanites, which are really now in this very strong position and gives Turks a very commanding position to reclaim if I may be bold enough to say, the caliphate. Because, the House of Saud has been from day one a very bold experiment and implant by, as we know, the then Brits and later on, and the ousting of the Hashemite kingdom from Saudi Arabia. I mean, all this now has come to play. All what we saw at the back is back. How does Saudi Arabia fare out of all this? I think Saudi Arabia is least impacted by all this. Because, it would have been impacted had it, to be very honest, I mean, there is a kind of today politics, may I just say that, is really not what it appears. It never has been, but never before has this onion had so many peel layers as it does today. So while
Let
the
me be bold enough to ask the presence of the Turks in the Syrian territory and the reclaiming of the territories that were once part of the caliphate does it not make the Saudis feel uneasy? Their
no,
presence
no, it
next door.
actually. No, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to understand these are countries almost if you start traveling from Pakistan, this is a contiguous landmass. It's the Eurasian landmass. In fact, if we all talk to each other like we used to in the 50s and 60s, I could still travel back from Amman, where I was a few days back, by road. And actually, coming from Amman to Dubai, I mean, a crow's flight is actually shorter than going from Rawalpindi, Islamabad to Karachi. But to answer your question, yes, the uneasiness is there. But you have to understand that MBS and the politics of Saudi Arabia is now pretty much in two parts. That the Saudis want to reclaim themselves as the seat of Islam. I do not think that they have any or want to be in that trouble anytime soon. If you look at what do they really want in the longer term, they want their revenue streams, they want to emerge as a more moderate society. The fact that, in fact, I think the picture in MBS's mind is like this the country of Vatican with, and the relationship with Italy. So it's like this the Makkah and Medina protectorates and the relationship with the larger kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I think that's really where things are heading. So direct, Turks, even the Iranians have never been bold enough, other than obviously the one time that there was some terrorism attack in the Kaaba. I think you remember that, and the Iranians were blamed for that. But I think there has been some sort of a parlay between Iran and Afghan and Saudi Arabia, and China is very much at the helm of this. So for me,
Yes.
no, there is no outright danger immediately to Saudi Arabia, and neither are they sensing it.
Yes, because when the First World War took place, the borders were national borders were redrawn. So it happened in the Second World War, and now it's again the melting down of the borders in the Middle East, as we can see that happening in Syria.
I
So
would
something
I
is
would ask.
coming. Yes, yes,
No, no,
please.
but what I would ask, I mean, so the borders are redrawn by size. So this part, like we were suffered at the hands of Sir Mortimer Durrant. Yeah, I mean, I call
Durand
him
line,
Durrant,
yes, Durand
right?
line.
These guys suffered at the hands of Sykes and Picot. And if you remember, there's a very famous movie, Lawrence of Arabia, which
Of
which
course,
kind of
yes, yes.
documents
Omar
the
Sharif, yes. Yes.
right, yeah. So no, actually, you said the melting of borders. I would actually say, this is a chance for Syria to, if Turkey plays the part right, without actually board. Turkey does not want more land. Turkey already is fine with what it has, the number of borders it has, its connectivity with Europe and
It
everything.
doesn't hurt to
What
have
Turkey
more.
does carry, no, no, but sorry, but
Yes.
what Turkey does carry is the fact that it's a NATO member.
Yeah.
So what Ukraine is jostling for, Turkey already has. Yet, on the other hand, Turkey does not have an EU membership. So it still gives Turkey the ability to bridge between, and it is the land bridge between Eurasia, the Europe and Asian side of this Eurasian subcontinent. So
Yeah.
I don't think Turkey wants more land. Turkey just wants the Kurds at bay,
But
right?
remember,
Now,
not very long ago, the Turks showed interest in joining BRICS. They were interested in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which alarmed the NATO members to some extent. The Turks are looking eastward, and their interest is, of course, historically the caliphate. Their influence reached as far as the present day India. So why wouldn't they want to look eastward and worry too much about their NATO membership?
So basically, I think the answer to that is twofold. One, NATO itself is really something that has come under a sort of either a rebirth, if I may say so,
Mm.
or likelihood of a demise, even if not now, in a quarter of a century. Why? So NATO itself is, the Americans, because the EU itself, Europe, will need a new alliance to really rear its heads because it's really getting tired of playing second fiddle to or passing or saying yes to everything the US does. Because who has gotten hurt in the last 2 years or 3 years? I forget, 3 years have passed since the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, who's gotten hurt? Are the Americans suffering from cold? Have their GDPs lost? I mean, has
No,
the
not
largest
at all.
industry?
Our
No,
GDP
nothing.
is lost.
Nothing at all.
Our
So
GDP is
let's talk
lost.
about Turkey.
Yes.
So let's talk about Turkey. And Turkey, on the other hand, as one of my friends very aptly defines, the center of gravity of the Islamic world has shifted so eastward, that there are more Muslims, even if you take the ones in India and everything else, east of India, than in any other part of the world. So the center of gravity of the Islamic world is there. So what happens? I mean, we have countries like Indonesia, they why not,
In
right?
the
The
world
largest.
where we live, it only takes a good media manager to shift the heart anywhere. And where there's so much of shifting of hearts and borders taking place. What is the future of Palestine amongst all this scenario?
So I think in all this scenario, we do hope that there is a ceasefire. We do hope that the Palestinians, get to retain some of the territory, which unfortunately they will not be able to, right? What
Yeah,
I do hope is that, for example, 60% of Jordanians are actually Palestinian origin. So, 700,000 Palestinians left in 1948. So can you imagine how many there are today? So in fact, there are more
yes.
Palestinians
Hopes are fine,
than
Amer Saab, hopes are fine. We all hope for the for good things to happen, but now Israel controls the Gaza entirely. Are they going to leave it to the Palestinians like before, that you can come and rebuild, resettle, and we can live in peace? Or there is going to be total uh, obliteration of the uh, population of Gaza, and that will be the end of everything.
I think next time I'll send you a map. I have a time series map we just did for Gaza and how the state of Israel took over the rest of Palestine,
Yeah,
right? Then Palestine
we've
in the
all seen.
30s. So if you realistically ask me, no. My answer to you is no. I do not see Gaza being resettled, but Gaza is not the only Palestine, right? In fact, all of Palestine is gone already. As I was trying to explain to you, the larger territory, Gaza is only 365 square kilometers. Just that, you
Just
know, that's a very, 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 very small
and
place,
yes, 2 million
right? And
people squeezed
Gaza,
to that place. Yes, to
yeah,
that.
yeah, and already it was one of the most populous places. So I see a rebirth of Gaza just for the sake of whoever wants to live there, controlled by Israel. I see the West Bank again squeezed much more after this happens. But my plea is that, and hope. You said nothing about hope, so I will not talk about hope. Let's talk about reality. Reality is no. The answer to you is no. Palestinians are not going to come back and live there as we think they could, right? This is going to go into a very different type of development, and let's see how. Because eventually, I think it's not even the Qataris or Egyptians or Saudis that are going to make a difference this time. I think this time these negotiations are actually one-sided. So it's really unfortunate.
So, last question. Pakistan's role and posturing in this situation, and there are talks about Pakistan recognizing Israel.
Well, I think, to be very honest, we have sort of always amalgamated Kashmir issue with the Palestinian issue and with Israel and recognizing this and that. We actually sit with India. We recognize each other. We have diplomatic relations. What does that actually do? What it has done for Pakistan so far is it enables us to actually at least sit on the table and talk, right? By not recognizing Israel, just because we think there is some romantic notion about, the founding father or fathers having thought of it this way, I'm not quite sure that all of them thought of it this way. But I think that the recognition of Israel was a must a very long time ago. And doing it now is almost like, submitting to power. It's like it's the will of Israel kind of thing, right? When Israel really doesn't care whether Pakistan
If
really
it has to
recognizes it.
happen, Amisab, if it has to happen,
It,
it must.
it has to happen.
Should we wait for the Saudis to do it first and we follow suit, or we should do it on our own? How would it look better?
I think that the Saudis recognizing Israel, not recognizing Israel is it's not even relevant because Saudis talk to Israel every day. Their flights fly over Saudi Arabia. In fact, I saw LL routing on the way back. The UAE, I mean, they have embassies there. They have good relationships with them. I think Pakistan, Saudi, this break this bond. I would like Pakistan to do it on its own. If this is a decision, I would love to see, and I want Pakistan to be that independent. We have to redefine our foreign policy. That's what you're referring to.
That's
We
what I'm
can't
actually
do that.
referring to, that our foreign policy is attached to everybody else's sentiments, how other people will think and feel about it rather than what is in our interest. That's how
Yeah.
our foreign policy is defined as far as I can understand it.
No, but that's exactly true. I mean, so therefore, your question, should we do it before Saudi, after Saudi? I'm already telling you that we should have done it in 1947, 48, 49, whenever we had the chance. We could have done it earlier, 20 years ago. But I think now, just, sweetly one day do it and to forget everybody, right? The issue is that Pakistan's foreign policy is dictated by a quasi understanding of the religious sentiment in Pakistan. I think that religious sentiment has to be delinked. I mean, look at the current madrasa bill and everything that's happening. When you want to do, you get pressure from your actual rulers. You do everything. So, bottom line is, Pakistan's foreign policy needs to really disentangle itself from all these pertinent and get going on doing a new foreign policy for this century. I think we've suffered too long.
Thank you so much, Durrani, for your time, for your insight, for sharing all this with us. And thank you very much for watching. Khuda Hafiz.
Most welcome, and I hope your throat gets better.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Khuda Hafiz, Pakistan Zindabad.